Hey everybody, GCU Bill here, and I'm even wearing my fancy GCU shirt. Been a few months since I've last posted, and I have completed the second course in the PhD journey, PhD in General Psychology at GCU. The second course title is Psychoanalysis and Psychodynamic Theory, and it's really going crazy about Freud. And that's literally what we did for 2 months. Is go hardcore at Freud. And boy, talk about reading. If there's any cautionary note, is just be ready to read. There is so much material to consume. Overall, the course was fantastic. The grades were posted last week, which was nice. And did good. Got an A. Still can make an A. That's wonderful. I think the best thing about that last course was the professor. Dr. Oats was the instructor for the course. And what I particularly enjoyed this time was that the extra materials that Dr. Oats provided in the discussion forums made the collaboration portion of the course so much easier. From my other videos, you may recall that what I didn't particularly like or I find it cumbersome for me personally is engaging in this online dialogue and forum. I'm getting better, getting more comfortable, that's for sure. I understand its purpose and it's good for building knowledge. But I really like that Dr. Oats had brought in external materials, YouTube videos, TED Talks, things like that we could go watch, see how it applied to the readings from that week's module, and it contributes to your overall lesson, and comment on it. There were personality tests offered. Is this something you can do and share your results or not? And I loved it. It just made it so much easier, that whole aspect of having to find somebody to say something constructive with in the forums wasn't an issue this past time, and I just loved it. I did do my process of working ahead. Interesting to note, I'm in my third course now, and the instructor made it clear, don't work too far ahead. You can read, but don't work too far ahead because I will change the assignments. So I'm holding back on that in this third course a little bit. But in the second course, I was able to work ahead. And in fact, the last few weeks I had nothing to do because I had done everything ahead of time. When you do your discussion posts and things like that, that has to be during the week of the module. But as far as like answering the discussion questions beforehand and the major essays that were due, I had them all done early, which allowed me to continue to work on building out my references. And I'm getting smarter about my references as I learn more about what's required for the thesis and dissertation. I am now being very selective on the articles that are coming in. If they're not studies done in the United States and the recommended research isn't from a doctoral holder and things like that, I don't include it in my analysis of future research. Doesn't mean the other sources aren't good, just that it will make it easier later when I have to defend the gap that I'm going to have and speak to in my dissertation. In the second course, I'll say that the assignments were more complicated than the first class. That is, the instructions were a little bit more complicated and required elaboration by the instructor. Make sure we got things right and positioned in the right way. One thing I really liked that came out of that course was we were provided a generic synthesis outline. And it made all the synthesis stuff that I was struggling with in the first course much, much easier. So, and I've since used that synthesis outline for the essay. And now, again, I'm in the third course now, but I'm talking about the second course. But I've used that second course synthesis outline as my framework for the essay that I'm doing right now in the third course. So that outline is very powerful. So when you get it, assuming your instructor provides it in your second course, take it, learn it, and get comfortable with it. I looked at my score for the course overall, and I've already shared it in the video earlier on, the snapshot. You see, I really didn't miss many points, like 2 points maybe in the whole course, which was great. I'm surprised, happily surprised. But one of the things I did miss a point on in the very first week in my very first post was that, in the discussion responses, you're supposed to provide an academic resource. No problem. I get that. And it has to be provided in the APA format. Got it. In the first course, when we provided those responses, sometimes when you can't find the DOI, you're allowed to say retrieved from, and then post the link where you actually got the article. And I did that a lot in the first course, and a lot of other students did too. But what had happened was when I posted that in the second course and I had to list the retrieve from URL, it came over as a hyperlink. Now that happened in the first course too, but the professor didn't dock anyone for that. Or at least he didn't dock me for it. But in the second course, I got dinged 1/10 of a point out of the 6 points. Not a big deal, but it is a lesson and just something I would share with anybody else. Just make sure you strip out any pasting of a hyperlink. Maybe you knew to do that. The first course it didn't matter, so I figured, well, it really doesn't matter here. Well, I got that wrong. So I now make sure, very sure, there's no more URLs pasted in. It's just a plain text version of the URL. Overall, the program is still going great. I've hit that phase of, okay, I kind of got this figured out. I've got a rhythm going. I'm happy. A lot of reading. Still jazzed about the program, but I'm kind of hitting that like steady state. The honeymoon has definitely worn off, and I'm looking ahead at the next 17 or whatever classes I've got to go. And it's going to be a lot of work. I'm just going to keep saying that to anybody who's watching. There's a lot of work, assuming you really do it and participate like the instructors intend. I did get access to the DC network, and it's been fantastic. That's that resource that I read in different places, different times that you're given access to it. Some places said after the third course, you get access. Other people were sharing in the second course, they already had access. I asked my counselor, she said, well, you should already have access to it. So I finally did verify and log into the DC network, and there is a ton of great resources in there that have answered a lot of questions. Interestingly enough, GCU has created a new template for the dissertation. In fact, the dissertation now comes in 2 forms. There is one for the quantitative research and one for the qualitative research. And they've also fused the proposal activity into the dissertation itself. Before it was like a separate document, but they've actually included more portions of it as part of the overall template, which I think is great. And also the switching over to the APA 7. And if you remember in one of my early videos, I shared I had bought the 7th edition APA manual, and I got into the courses and they said we follow 6. Well, now it looks like they're shifting over to 7, so my manual actually will be of help. So overall, everything's fantastic. Was that last class worth the $2,000 I spent? Absolutely. I could not have learned as much or as well guided as I was had I done it on my own for those 2 months. The feedback I got from Dr. Oats in some cases was generic, and in my essays there were, generic comments like, I really can't offer anything extra here or there. But there were helpful tools provided, and that's where I'm really grateful. And I appreciate the tools. It's going to help me as I go my way. I'm also getting, I think, closer and better and narrowing in on my particular topic at this moment. It's narrowing down as I continue my robots and pedagogical agents. How do the pedagogical agents, whether they're virtual ones or a chat bot or a robot, actually help when people are collaborating online? I've noticed and found a really neat framework called the COI, the Community of Inquiry, and it's got validated tools, and it's an accepted way to study forums. And so I think I can explore what I'm interested in about these synthetic agents operating as a pedagogical agent, like actively functioning as some kind of facilitator in the learning process. So I got to write about that in this, and again, this is about the second course, but I'm in the third course now, and I got to write about it in the first essay. So I'm excited about tying all that stuff together. So things are going well. I'm past the honeymoon. I'm just more on that comfortable. This is a marathon. I'm in that comfortable. I got my rhythm. I'm just breathing and going. I'm not like going crazy way out on the edge. I do have lots of articles read, a lot of annotations created. I've got over 40 now formally annotated, though later ones of the 40 are way better than the earlier ones, but I guess that's part of what's expected. I suspect that by the end of this course, I'll be well over 50, which is halfway towards my goal of 100. But they say you need to have 150 to 200 by the time the dissertation comes around, so I still have a long way to go. So life was great. Everything's wonderful. And this has been a great experience so far, and still bright-eyed, bushy tailed, having a good old time. So, lopes out, everyone. Do your thing. Go for it.